Here's your report.
Oh, thanks, Jane. I wish I could hire someone just like you.
Try LinkedIn Hiring Pro. It's more than a job board. It's like the recruiter you always wished you had. Hiring Pro uses real-time insights to match your role to LinkedIn's unique network of professionals and delivers a short list of best fit candidates. You'll spend less time sorting applicants and more time talking to the right people.
Let's do it. You're irreplaceable, Jane, but another you would be great.
Hire right the first time. Post your job for free on LinkedIn today at linkedin.com/quality.
As soccer takes center stage this summer, Comcast helps bring the experience home to America. As the exclusive Spanish-language home of the tournament in the U.S., Telemundo is set to present its most expansive coverage ever. 700 hours of programming, live on-site presence at all 104 matches. And with multi-view and real-time 4K, Xfinity will deliver the most innovative and immersive sports viewing experience for fans watching on Telemundo, Peacock, Fox, and FS1. Learn more at ComcastCorporation.com.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to talk about a very important philosophy called It Doesn't Matter What You Want. And this runs counter to much of the stuff out there on social media about how you should do everything you want all the time, and just the general tenor of a lot of therapy, unfortunately, which is that you should do what you want, and if you want it, it's good. And this is just as crazy as when parents assume that, if you leave a kid to their own devices, they will always do the right thing, which is something that you hear in this kind of child-centered society. People don't think their kids lie. They think that if given all the food options, their kid isn't just going to eat a bunch of pixie sticks, but yet they do, and whatever else. This whole listen to your body thing, I saw a funny meme. It was if I listened to my body, I would have Diet Coke all day and then chocolate cake all night, and then that would be what my body would want. A lot of times listening to only your id and your urges is not good, and people can tell that if they have long periods of doing that, right? Because there are a lot of people that do struggle with impulsivity, and they will, just drink too much, smoke, yell and scream at their kids or their family or their spouse. They'll just, indulge their basest urges without having that counterpoint, of telling yourself not to do things. So if you do everything you want at the moment that you want it without any greater, kind of checks and balances system, then often you do the wrong thing. And also so does your kid, and so does anybody, of any age. If they were to only do what they want, frequently that's not going to be anything good, because your wants are frequently, especially if you're an impulsive person, they're impulses, and a lot of impulses need to be weighted out in service of the larger good. So what's my example here in terms of it doesn't matter what you want? I didn't used to want to do a podcast at all. I hated podcasts. I still don't listen to podcasts. I think they're stupid. I'm really glad that everybody listens to this one, but it's my job. I listen to people talk all day. If I also had to listen to somebody talk in my ear all night, I would just really not be happy. So I didn't want to do a podcast. And then enough of my clients said, you should do a podcast. Enough people on the internet said, you should do a podcast. I like podcasts. I can't read those long articles. I don't have time for that, but I can listen to a podcast when I drive. So I started a podcast, but I didn't want to start a podcast. And it turned out to be a great decision, because when I was at the turning point for whether I should start the podcast, I said to myself, why don't I want to start a podcast? Because of that, because I don't want to start a podcast. I don't have any other reason. I don't have a philosophical reason or some sort of reason that I can't get the time, or that I think would be particularly, impossible to do or something. I just don't want to. And of course, what would I tell my kids if they didn't want to, let's say, do their homework? I would say that doesn't matter, because you have to do your homework, because you have to do what the teacher says if you want to get the good grade. If you're in school and you're trying, so homework is going to be part of that. And so you just have to do it, because that is what we have signed up for here, is for you to go to school, and within school there is homework, and you can't just fail because you don't want to do something. Right? That kind of the life lesson that you get from homework, which of course I think is often stupid, but it does teach the kid this philosophy that you don't always get to do what you want. If you do want to get a good grade long term, or even just not fail, you have to do things that you don't want to do. Why? Because you get good grades, then you will get a good job, and it's just a proxy for whether you can do shit you don't want to do. All this stuff is just proxy for whether you can do shit you don't want to do. Because if you're on the operating table, you don't want a surgeon that was like, I really did not feel like learning about this part of the anatomy, so I'm just going to wing it, right? You want somebody that is committed to that they do things they don't want to do, even when they're hard, and they try to do well at it. And that's any job. So anyway, if that's what I would tell my children, then that's what I should tell myself. It doesn't matter if you want to do it, so just do it. So I did it, and it turned out to be a good decision. So point being that if you feel deeply like it is very hard for you to do things that you don't want to do, this is going to impact your relationships, it's going to impact your career, and it's going to impact your parenting. Because you're always aggrieved then. You always feel like you're missing out on doing what you want, which is usually some impulsive shit, like just wasting time and sitting around and scrolling, instead of doing what you need to do for your larger goals. So, for example, there are parents that tell me, well, I just don't want to cook. I'm upset that my kids aren't learning to cook, and I could cook, but I don't want to. So then I have, I DoorDash every single night, and then I get increasingly upset, that my kids are not learning any basic, cooking skills, and they're getting older, and I wish that they were. And this is treated, as somewhat of, like an insolvable problem of some sort. Like you can't do it because you don't want to. And that's supposed to make sense. Oh my God, this is terrible. I guess somehow we should make you want to. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of therapists will do, is say, well, how, like with like a little child, like how can we make it more palatable for you to cook? How can we make it fun? How can we make it fun? Who cares? Who cares? You're an adult. You're an adult. And even for a child, who cares? Like, I don't say to my kids, like, why don't we make homework fun? It's not fun. You do get to learn something. That's cool. And it's the same thing here. You get to learn that you can do something even when you don't want to. So you can just commit to cooking one night a week, right? And you just do it. So then you push yourself and you're not going to like it and you don't want to, but larger scale, you feel that you need to because philosophically and ethically you feel, this hypothetical person feels, that teaching the children to cook and to have that life skill is important. And I definitely agree with that because I have so many people that come in as young adults that say, my parents didn't teach me any adulting skills and I'm upset. So 100% your kid should know how to cook something. I agree. And is it good to DoorDash all the time? I guess it's not like bad morally, but it certainly does not teach anything but how to DoorDash. So if you want to teach a kid a skill of cooking, just do it. But the thing is, you don't have to want to do it. You can see a larger world in which you want, after the part where you don't want to sit down and do it, there is an achievement, there's an accomplishment, there is a larger goal that you have reached, which is you did something you didn't want to do in service of your children learning something. And that is valuable, and that will make you so much more proud of yourself than just doing what you want at any given second. So you can, and if your kids see you do this, then they will learn too that they can do things they don't want to do. Because so much of anxiety in kids is when they don't do things that they don't want to. And then eventually they start to get scared of those things because they haven't done them in so long. So like it starts out with, I don't want to go to school because school is boring. Then a few days gone from school, you start to be a little anxious. What did I miss? It's going to be hard. I'm not going to want to catch up, right? And so what do I want to do? I want to sit on the couch and scroll on my device while I watch another screen. And then that 2 screens plus snacks sounds really good. And that sounds like something I want to do in this moment. And in this house, we do what we want. It's kind of like interesting because I've obviously spoken about the we do what we want marriage, where both people only do what they want. And then when one person's drive goes down, usually the woman, she doesn't even learn about responsive desire because it's so antithetical to the idea that she would just do what she wants all the time, right? And if she doesn't in that moment feel like she wants to have sex, why try? That goes along with the philosophy. And of course, then that's not so good for the marriage. Same with men who want to go, let's say, train for a triathlon. Well, that's cool, but where are you getting all those hours a week from, right? So your wife's going to be upset, but she can't say anything because you both do what you want. You want. And there's no larger, maybe I shouldn't do the thing I want because there's something else that's more important. That's like, for example, spending time with your family and not leaving your wife with the kids all weekend while you train for a triathlon, for example, right? So it could be something as small as cooking one meal a week, which is not small for people that don't do it. I don't mean to say it is. It would be a big change for people like that and hard. But it could be something like that. It could be something like trying out to see if you are in the mood with responsive desire with your husband. It could be something like trying to be more romantic with your wife and say more complimentary things, even if that's not how you're raised and you don't want to, and you don't want to be put in that uncomfortable position of putting yourself out there. The point is that we live in a society where your wants are treated like a religion. There's fewer and fewer people are religious in any way, but and that's fine, but you got to replace it with something, right? You got to replace it with some moral code, some ethical code. And so in the sense that, let's say your ethical code could be to be the best parent that I could be. Well, if you're the best parent you could be, that's not just giving your kids everything they want in the moment. Because then what if they don't want to go to school? Then eventually you end up with school refusal, kids sitting on your couch all the time scrolling and depressed and anxious and socially anxious and everything's worse, right? And that doesn't derive from parents who are, quote, bad parents in any way. It derives frequently from, the research shows, school refusal comes from warm, anxious parenting. So a parent that's too upset to make the kid do something they don't want to do. They get too anxious about that themselves. They never want to force the kid to do anything, including go to the doctor even. Or, I've heard everything, of people who have anxious kids and they're anxious themselves. And it always stems from this initial, the kid refuses to do something. The parent doesn't want to make them do something they don't want to do because that's against the ethos of the house. And things just spiral from there. And you should listen to my podcast on the space program with Dr. Singer that I just did like 2 months ago. And the space program is for parents of anxious kids, and it trains them to start helping your kid do things, even if they don't want to, in service of larger goals, such as being part of society, being proud of yourself for tackling things, rising to challenges, etc. So my point is, in all of this, is do things you don't want to do. Start today. If I was your therapist, I would give you that assignment. If this idea scares you, start today. I have a podcast on what helps at least women do hard things is frequently the children, so motivate yourself with the children. I remember years ago I was scared of driving because I got into an accident. But when I knew that I was going to have a baby, I started to drive on the highway and everything, and I was very scared. I was dripping sweat. I was always driving, but I wouldn't drive on the highway because I had an accident. And I was like so anxious. But I did not want to have a child that mother couldn't drive because I was in that scenario growing up myself with parents that had fear of driving. So I didn't ever want my child to feel like that and to be the one whose parent couldn't drive them someplace. So that was what I used to tackle the fact that I didn't want to drive. And that was I voiced it as a fear because I'm a psychologically minded person who's in grad school for psychology, right? But other people in that scenario I've seen just say they don't want to. They just don't want to drive. They just don't want to drive anymore. And they don't even think about why they don't want to, or that it doesn't matter if they don't want to, or that they have to, or they have to get back on the horse. So they just say they don't want to, and everybody around them says, oh, okay. And so then they just take Ubers forever. And, there's a limitation to that. With every life skill that you say you don't want to do and that you turn back away from, your life is more and more small and constricted, and you experience less of this one life that you are allotted on this planet. because you are only doing these little things that you want, which grows less and less and less over time, because people get stuck in these ruts, and any bit of discomfort within that larger context of only doing what you want is seen to be a signal that you don't want to do the thing, and therefore you should not. So your life grows more and more and more small, which is not what anybody wants long term. All right, thank you guys for listening, and I will talk to y'all soon. Have a great day.